great way for a delighted John Cleland to start the new season. Second on the grid, first in the race. That'll do nicely. Another 18 left, and will Rydell bog down in the Volvo again? We'll soon know. And the answer is no.
We need to work harder. It's not good enough. 2 engines and 2 races. Not acceptable. The team must push harder. Today, my radar engines must stop blowing up. I'm trying to build a championship.
John Cleland is sandwiched between the 2 BMWs and going for first, says John Cleland. Oh, McNeil sideways, championship leader in big trouble. Sideways, he gets it back again. It's Plato and McNeil side by side.
I'm going to rip your face off. You know what that? I'm going to rip your hey. What are we doing here? Is this stock car racing or is this motorsport? The man's an animal.
And Colin Turkington is going to become the champion for the 3rd time in his career with 1 race to stand.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Reverse Grid Podcast, the unofficial BTCC podcast. I got to get used to saying that whole thing. It's quite good. Back here again, obviously, with my co-host, my partner in crime, Lee. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Chris. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to this. It's felt like a long couple of weeks. It's weird, isn't it? When you kind of come off of it, it's like us BTCC fans, we hate this whole midsummer break thing, and then having 2 weeks in between still feels quite long. So it's
well, man, being able to keep quite busy, but yeah, it's I'm looking forward to the action this weekend at one of my favourite tracks.
Is it? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I being down in Devon, it's one of those, if ever I was looking at tracks that I could go to, one day I would like to get around them all. That is the one that obviously it's going to take a lot of planning for me, because it's
Well, how far would it take you to get up there?
Well, I've seen some people who shouting out here early on to Kevin Whitewood at the BTCC chat group on Facebook. It was in his group today. I saw some guys coming down from Torbay near where I am, and it was taking them something like 7.5, 8 hour drive.
I think I saw he put a screenshot up, hadn't he?
Yeah,
that means.
So, and he was in, I think it was Torquay Painting, so he's a little bit further down than me, but not far. So it's about 7.5 hours, you know.
Yeah, I did put the Google on there last week out of curiosity, and for me, and I think it was 4.5 hours, which was the same as Brands Hatch, which I was quite surprised at. So, and that's about as far as we've got to go. So from where I am, yeah, that's roughly Brands Hatch and Knockhill are both sort of 4.5 hours is the maximum.
There we go. Just to show.
I think even Snetterton's a bit closer. So.
Yeah, it's over the other side. Snetterton's
Norfolk, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't say ideally situated. You seem to be like kind of central to quite a few of them, which I'm quite jealous of.
Yeah, it's not too bad really. I mean, that was it. When we went to Brands Hatch the other week, I was quite surprised. I thought 4.5 hours. It's not too bad, because I'm used to driving a 2-hour drive to Nottingham every other week because I've got a season ticket watching Forest. So I'm kind of used to doing 2 hours, no problem. So then just adding another 2 hours on top of that is easy really, especially if you stop off. So the driving doesn't really bother me.
No.
So I definitely want to go to Knockhill one of these years. It's definitely a track I need to get to.
Yeah, I want to go to Scotland anyway. It's one place I've never been. So what better an excuse to go up there than to
exactly. Well, it's only, I think it's only half an hour away from Edinburgh, isn't it?
Just sort of north of
and Edinburgh looks a fantastic city. So yeah, again, it's a place where I'd love to maybe do a week or something. Go there on the Tuesday until the following Tuesday. And
yeah,
I mean, I think if you were looking at camping at Knockhill, you'd have to get it boxed off pretty quickly, because that's been fully booked for a while now as well.
Yeah, I'm feeling as well for, because this episode is going to go out quite soon after we record it, actually, so we catch the weekend. I really feel for the guys who are traveling on the M5 up from my part of the country, because it's been closed most of the day because of an accident. So it's going to be a long night for them. So get up there, and you might not get there for the campsite, but you'll get there for the action tomorrow. So
it'll be worth it in the end. Yeah,
absolutely. So touring cars, that's what we're here for. Think about it, it's been a couple of weeks. We were talking last time. It was the run into run into Croft. I haven't fallen asleep since that, have I?
Yeah, that
It feels-
that was a long drag. That I must admit that seemed to drag on longer than, not just for me, but everybody seemed to comment on it, didn't they? That just seemed, what was it, 6 weeks?
It was about that, wasn't it? Yeah, it's a proper.
That's
break.
I think that's a bit too long, really. I think 4 weeks is
Yeah.
enough. That's probably been one of my things with the touring car. So since they cut down to this 10 meeting format, it starts getting a little bit dragged out, and I think the season perhaps finishes a bit late as well. It
Yeah,
used to end. It always used to end in the September, so you've got like it running on an extra month, but you've got like 4 less meetings, so it just all seems to be stretched out a bit too far. I love that. Although we couldn't go to them, I actually loved the lockdown season because it was so condensed, wasn't it? It was so condensed. I think they did the whole thing in about 4 months or something, 3 months.
One of the seasons. This is where I have to hold my hands up. There was like 2 or 3 years I didn't see anything for one reason or another. I didn't see any of the lockdown stuff. I just find it weird. Any kind of sporting event, I think, that was going on then behind closed doors, especially any kind of motivation, I think.
Yeah, well, watching that back this week, and it was eerie actually when you're seeing them go around, because Knockhill's one of them where it's always packed, isn't it? You and because of the shape of it, you get to see the crowd almost backing up, and so to see them going around and just empty grandstands, it was almost quite eerie.
Yeah.
But
thank God those days are behind us. So you, sir, you were in amongst the thick of it at Croft. You were there. So give us some, before we get into the action, what happened on the track, how was it for you?
Superb, yeah. We got lucky with the weather. It didn't really rain, although I wouldn't have minded a bit of rain on the Sunday. But no, it was fantastic. Took my son, and he's touring car mad, so he got to meet all the drivers and have pictures. I think he must have had a photo with nearly every driver, so he was happy. And we had a photo with the legend that is Steve Ryder.
You did. You did.
And he was a gentleman as well. Told me a couple of stories about interviewing Brian Clough back in the day. But no, it was a brilliant weekend, and bit mixed really, because it's had a bit of criticism, hasn't it? People saying it was a bit boring and a bit processional. Now, I never thought that at the time, being there. Now, whether it was just because I was there, but my dad's a big touring car fan, and he texted me after the last race and said, "Oh, it's a bit boring, that too processional." But he missed the first 2 races. I said, "Yeah, but he said, oh, the BMW had it easy." I thought, you should have watched the first 2 races then.
Exactly. Yeah, I did enjoy it, I must admit, as a spectator, and after the qualify, I think it was just the fact that there was something remarkable about it. NAPA Racing, obviously, setting the tone. Once I realised going into qualifying that they'd got pole position on every qualifying so far this season, and then they managed to do that, a complete lockout on the qualifying and in the first 2 races.
Pure domination, isn't it?
It was, wasn't it? And I can see why people are saying that touring cars may have lost its spark a little bit now because of that. But you can't argue the fact that they've got a winning formula here. They
deserve it. Yeah,
they absolutely.
Yeah, again, I think we might have discussed it on the last podcast where I said I haven't got a problem with a driver dominating it for a season. Yeah, if it's season upon season, it becomes different. But the way everybody looks back at the super touring era through rose tinted specs and says, "Oh, it was so much better than today, so much better." But virtually every season was dominated by a driver or a car. I think there was only really, I can think, certainly from my time of watching it from sort of 94, there was only really the 95 and 98 seasons you'd say were open. They very rarely went to the last weekend of the season.
Yeah.
So
that's a good shout.
So I haven't got a problem really with if they've got the best car. It's down to the others to up the game, isn't it?
And I've been watching some of the the previous year's reviews DVDs that we got a bit like yourself, and I think I went back to 2012. So I've said it a few times. It was the first year that I majorly got back into it. Since I was really little. And even then, seeing, the Redstone racing, I think it was then Matt Jackson. This is where
Motorbase.
Motorbase. Obviously, it's still them, and you could see even back then they were looking dangerous with that.
Yeah,
they didn't even have an NGTC car at the beginning of that season. I think
that's right. Yeah, they switched, didn't they, halfway through?
Yeah, and they were.
And oddly enough, the other car was the Super 2000 one seemed to perform better, didn't it? Really?
Yeah. Which you can appreciate. Obviously, the NGTC was having a bit of a run out, but. They were verging on. They weren't dominating back then, but they were there or thereabouts. And Matt Jackson was always in the mix.
Yeah,
still getting. As I was going back, doing a little bit of history checking on Knockhill, he was still within the last 10 years. He was still in there.
Yeah.
Chasing high positions and everything. So the fact that Motorbase are there, now, I think is thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, the way they've worked their way up. Because I think it was 2006 they first came in with David Pinkney. And then the following year, they had a couple of awful Seat Toledos, which hardly finished. I think it was Gareth Howell and Matt Allison, and they were really struggling. And you never would have foreseen what's gone on. And then they sort of upped it, didn't they? When they got to the BMWs then as, I think it was Leyland Paints first, and then it was Airwaves.
Yes.
So they've always had that. They've always had that kind of sponsor. Obviously, now it's NAPA. But they've really, they've had those Ford Focuses for a long time as well. Like you say, going back to 2012, they had them then.
Yeah, so they
for a
put
few
faith
years
in the car, and for me, it's
shredded wheat as well. They were for a while, weren't they? They've always had, but the Napa ones are something special. And fair play to them. I like Motorbase. They've been there for a while, and I know he doesn't run them now, but he was always a good character. Dave Bartram as well, who ran them probably until about 2 years ago. So. Yeah. You couldn't begrudge them.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I will say that. Anyone listening to this, you think we're just going to hark on about what we think? No, this is just our opinions. Everyone's entitled to theirs. You got your reasons for thinking it. Touring cars may not be as exciting as before. I personally, watching it at home, I thought it was a good watch, and I'd say fair enough, fairly clinical in the first couple of races. I would say. You saw Robo do the decent thing. Apparently not team orders. We'll leave that, in inverted commas, I think. I think it was the first race, wasn't it? He gave up second to Sutton, and then Sutton ended up getting the win in race 2.
He did a cracking job, Robo, didn't he?
He did. Because
I've got to admit, I had a little bit of a disagreement with Dan. Or not disagree. I don't know what the word. It wasn't exactly a spat. Yeah, a difference of opinion. I was actually talking with somebody else on Facebook. I think I said something along the lines of, I don't really rate Dan Rowbottom. He's been in it for 2.5 years now, and apart from half a season at Dynamics, I've not really seen enough from him. And he saw it, I think, the next day, and sort of waded into the argument. Yeah. And he was pretty sound about it, to be fair. He because I wasn't being nasty about it, because I think I said to him during it, look, I'll hold my hand up. I'm an opinionated person, but I would never like to be an offensive person. But that's just sport, isn't it? People always have an opinion on sport, whether it's boxing, whatever, football. You're going to have an opinion on it. There's a difference between having an opinion on it and being nasty or personal. And he was really sound about it. And he could have been a bit snotty and a bit bit off about it. And I think it finished with me saying, I hope you prove me wrong. And he's done really well since then. He has done really well. And it's, we met him at Croft, and he was a top bloke, and fair play to him. It's good to see him doing well. And I genuinely hope he does. It carries on for him.
Team player.
He did a great job at Croft.
That's what really came out for me. He was team player, because then when he dropped to third, he was keeping everyone else at bay. He's not one up there who's, again, I hate the idea of team orders in motorsport, but I totally understand, why they, these tactics come out. It's got to be a tactical thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, but they all do it, don't they? They all do it. You remember back in '97, Plato was doing it for Menuet on occasions. And then obviously he did it for Muller.
I was going to say, we can talk about that one some more later on.
But... And then, of course, there was a famous incident where Aaron Smith didn't do it, or Aaron Taylor Smith didn't do it for him in 2015, and that got very bitter, and I don't know if he ended up losing his his seat for the following season. So it's an important thing. But you see there with Plato how it changed for him. If you play the game in the long run, you can benefit. And I think with Rowbottom, he can take a lot of credit, because not just did he have the pace in qualifying and in that first race, I mean, he would have finished ahead of Ash Sutton if there'd been no team orders, or he didn't want to. So it was a moral second place. Then the third race, he showed a different side to his driving, and he worked bloody hard to get that third place. He was probably as satisfied with that as he was finishing second in the first race.
I would think so. I mean, it's this little grant. This is going to be really, really interesting going into to this weekend. I am one for trends. If I see a trend coming, I could, I like to keep an eye on it. Ash Sutton, last two meetings, not had a good run off the line, pretty much in the third race, and as a consequence for Croft, he, the first two races he extended his lead over Ingram, and it just all went away, and he literally left the weekend in no better position than he was when he went in, because I think he got caught up in someone else's problem this time.
You know what it is, don't you? It's like we said when I spoke to you privately. It's Alan Gow. He's got a little device, Muttley, and goes out there and drops a little time bomb and makes sure that the championship stays competitive. Every time someone looks like they're going to pull away, there's like a little curveball that gets thrown. But
you can't say that is boring then, because really it could have been a foregone conclusion. They could have done it again in race 3. They could have, at least 2 of them been up there.
I thought there was plenty going on. I thought that over the weekend you had a couple of big moments for Aidan Moffat and Sam Osborne. They could have been 2 huge crashes. Thankfully, they weren't. You had Jake Hill making 2 uncharacteristic mistakes, which lost him places. Further down the order, I mean, George Gamble did a great drive in race 3, going from 25th to 10th.
He did.
Just doesn't look fantastic, doesn't it? 10th, but 15 places.
15 places, exactly.
A lot of seasons there, and you make 15 places in a race, and you're getting through onto the podium or something. Some seasons, it was a brilliant drive. So there was plenty of overtaking going on from him. And there was plenty from the young lad Daryl De Leon was arguably the star of the weekend for me, because I mean he started 22nd and was going up to 11th when he got his drive through penalty, and I think that was very harsh for his opening weekend. I mean that in mind as well, could have been better if he didn't have that, but cracking first outing really, for someone. I think he's for 17 years old. He brought the car home 3 times, and he was so close to getting points. Now, he was ahead of Jade Edwards at that particular time, and in the points. And obviously, Jade struggled, and you get the feeling that it's not being. Although she says it was an amicable split, you kind of get the feeling that wasn't the case. Or she was certainly at least very frustrated with the car and the running of it. And that would have been quite ironic had he managed to finish ahead of Jade and got some points on his debut. And fair play to him. He was rapid.
Be good to see what lies ahead. You mentioned Jake Hill there. I was going to actually bring that up as well. Really, he was probably the who I felt sorry for the most, because the 2 mistakes he made, he was attacking. Do you get an air of desperation a little bit there, that he was pushing a little hard and just made those mistakes? Which
maybe I can't think who he was battling with on those occasions.
I know Josh Cook was one of them.
Was it? And was Ingram another? Was Ingram the first one? The first spin was at Clairvaux, wasn't it? The first corner,
possibly. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was.
And Ingram's a tough guy to get past. So if it was Ingram he was battling with in that first one, I mean that could have just been frustration.
Just positioning. I think he, by the looks of it, he got 2 wheels. One of them he got 2 wheels on the grass, and the other he either brought gravel on the track or he spun on the gravel or something. Yeah. It's just it's those kind of things, and we saw the impact. At the end, again, it might not be many points in it, but Turkington being able to, again, second straight race 3 win for him. He leapfrogged Jake into third in the standings. It's all still to play for, but Turkington is just constantly just there, isn't he?
Yeah, he knows how to do it, and I don't think that's going to be enough this season. I mean, I remember the season where he only won 1 race and won the championship, and he's won 3 this season. But I don't think he's gonna be in the top top two
It-
personally. Yeah.
It would be dependent on the two above him making mistakes, and we've seen Ash Sutton make mistakes and be unlucky. Tom Ingram doesn't seem to be doing that. He seems to just be there.
Yeah,
You know,
Ingram's
just
so
he's
so.
Mr. Consistency at the minute.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. I mean, what about Jake Hill for you? Do you think that's he's out the title hunt now with those spins?
I think it's too early to say he's out the race, but I think it would have definitely dented his hopes. Again, that's why I was thinking maybe it's just frustration, it's desperation. He's still young, it's still costing him, even though he's been in it. I think we've said about 10 years still, even now, but he's still young in a sense.
Yeah.
I think he's still making those kind of rash decisions. I think this weekend will probably almost be a pivotal point for him, in my opinion.
I agree.
If he can put those behind him and pull back on the three in front of him, he's definitely still in with a shout.
Yeah, well, he's gone well at Knockhill in the past, hasn't he? He got his first official win there, and I think last season he had a win in 2 seconds.
He did.
So
yeah,
and when it's his stop, I'm gonna jinx it here like I did at Croft, but I kept saying how Croft was a rear wheel drive circuit, and I couldn't look beyond it, and then I ended up looking like a fool. But this one is another one that's been a rear wheel drive, and not just a BMW. Even Ash Sutton in the Infinity won a couple of races there, and Moffat did well in that Infinity. So it does tend to suit rear wheel drive cars. Jake Hill likes the track. He's won there in a front wheel drive Honda. So like you say, it could be a pivotal weekend for Jake, and I hope he does have a good weekend, because I've got a lot of time for Hill, and I like him as a driver, and it would be good for him to at least stay in the contention going into the final meeting. That's what you want, isn't it?
Exactly. I was going to say, selfishly, as spectators and fans, you don't want the title race to be all sewn up, and it's far from that, because Ash Sutton, had he not had those two bad race threes over the last 2 meetings, he could be much further ahead. Because I think if he stayed on there and the position he was in when he had those incidents, he would have been up there, podium place, I reckon, if not a second or a victory.
Like Camish has been Camish has been almost like doing like the Ingram and Turkinson role, hasn't he? Within NAPA, he's been steadily banking all the points, and maybe not being as spectacular as Ash Sutton, but when Ash Sutton's had those 2 non-finishes, Camish has been getting vital points, and it's.
We'll come on to a few predictions in a minute. We'll kind of have a little bit of a discussion about who we think what we think might happen. I like speculating, but I never like going into a weekend thinking I know what's going to happen. I like to be surprised.
You can't predict it.
No, but it's kind of I must admit, coming into this, I'm brushing up on my sort of history on some of the circuits as we're going round, because I must admit, as much as I know the competition, I may know some history on the competition and the drivers and that, circuits have never really, I've never delved into them, to be fair. So the characteristics and that I've kind of been delving into. Knockhill is quite a long stay. I didn't realise it had been on the programme for so long. Back in 1992, the year Tim Harvey won it, was the first year.
Yeah.
And a lot of drivers I've been seeing have been saying how much one of their favourites. Why do you think that is? Any ideas why they might like it as much as we do?
I think they seem to really like these undulating tracks, don't they? Where there's a lot of dips. I don't know what this sort of. I'm trying to find the right word now. This sort of love for undulating tracks, because they always pick out Old Park's usually one of a lot of drivers' favourites, and that's another track with a lot of undulation. Whether it's that and it's twisty and it's technical, it's just so spectacular, isn't it? I mean, that shot where they come over the little chicane there, and you can look at photos. I mean, it's no surprise that's probably been used on more of the season review covers than any other, because it's such a spectacular shot. It just never ages. Whether you're looking at something from the Super Touring era, whether you're looking at something from the last couple of years, it's just such a spectacular sight. And if you went to Knockhill, where would you spectate from? Because there's so many fantastic vantage points, isn't there?
It's I think the shortest circuit as well on the calendar.
Is it? Yeah.
Just at
must be pretty close with Brands Hatch Indy then, is it?
It must be 1.27 miles. It is. So it's
I know it's less than a minute to go round it. So
So it's fast as well. There you go. I mean, that's what I love about Thruxton as well myself. But
Yeah.
you know, apart from it being the local one, it is fast, and that's the kind of action you want.
Yeah.
People saying that it's too steady, it's too safe these days. I think with a track like this, where overtaking opportunities probably aren't as prevalent as they are in other tracks, it's narrower, it's faster. You know, you're going to have action. You're going to have, you know, instances there, which is cool.
Yep.
Looking at sort of, I was delving into sort of the last sort of 10 years performance, thanks to the BTCC archives. And it's very, very interesting to see the guys who are at the front running, the guys we've been talking about, Turkington, Sutton, Hill, and Ingram, you know, their history, recent history with the track. So 10 seasons, 30 races since 2013. Colin Turkington has been on the podium for half of those, which is a good ratio.
Doesn't surprise me really. We missed the consistency.
Yeah, and out of those, I think only 2 or 3 of them were wins. But again, just shows he is a master at playing that sort of you know, percentage game, isn't he? Really, not having to chase the win every single time. So, so interesting to see what he does.
Well, here's a little bit of trivia for you. It's it might be a trick. You might already know it anyway. But the first year that the touring cars went to Knockhill was, of course, 1992, and in the BMW, the ProDrive BMW. So there's a clue. They had a guest driver, a very famous racing driver. It was the only meeting that he did.
Is this Colin McRae?
Yes,
Yeah.
you were
I didn't know it was that meeting. Didn't know it was that year.
Yeah, it must be. I assume it was because of the Scotland connection and
yeah, of course.
Yeah, and obviously ProDrive. So they ran his rallying car, didn't he? That's I assume was he with Subaru back then? I don't know. 1992.
I think he probably was. Yeah,
I know he was there later on in the decade, but yeah. That was something that always intrigued me as a kid. Yeah, look when McRae was in touring cars. Yeah.
Okay. I think something else that I took out of the sort of statistics, which is quite a decent talking point, was I think over the last 3 seasons, I think it is, or 3 previous seasons, how often the top 4 is currently. So you got Ash Sutton, Turkington, Jake Hill, and Tom Ingram. How much they've been on the podium together in some combination or another. I think it was something like 9 times. No, not 9 times, because that would be all the races. It's 5 out of the 9 times, something like that. I've written down. Which, you know, going into this weekend, knowing that they're the 4 at the top, they're the ones that people are really going to be watching as well. They obviously know and have very successful runs at this circuit. It just adds to the excitement, doesn't it? It does. I mean, I think with Ash Sutton in particular, I mean, that he got the first win for the NAPA Ford there last season as well, didn't he? And that was at the time, it was quite an underdeveloped. Well, I wouldn't say underdeveloped. I don't know whether that's the right word, but they weren't completely happy with it, were they? Because they considered switching to another car over the winter. So it took a while to get that first win, but it came at Knockhill, and that car's come on leaps and bounds since then. So. And we've already said we won a couple of races there in the Infinity, so it's obviously a track that he goes well at as well. Yeah, was 5 out of 9. I've just totted it up. Well, 5 out of 9, 5 out of 9 races in the last 3 years. So
so he's got to be a strong favourite, I think. For what qualifying? Can you see it being another Napa?
This is going to be nice for me because I think it's a win-win. Because if it is, it's almost keeping up that whole consistency, that whole kind of record that they've 100% record. I think it's so impressive. So if
I actually want to see it happen,
and it's almost interesting. It's intriguing now. How long can they keep that up for? Because when you're doing that on the qualifying format, they are the quickest car. It is getting closer with some of them, like the BMWs. I mean, Ingram is still there or thereabouts, but. Nobody seems to really touch their times.
No.
It's quite safe. So I think it'd be great to see them do it, but it would also equally be really interesting to see someone else be able to knock them off that perch.
Yeah. I just want to see it. It's like when Jason Plato got past Andy Rouse for the wins. I want to see Colin Turkington take that 5th title to set the record. You've got obviously Napa could go and I don't know. When you're witnessing a bit of history, there's just something to it, isn't there? And you feel almost like you want to see it happen. You want to see a bit of history made, and
absolutely,
it becomes memorable. So as much as I don't want to see Napa walk away with it, I would quite like to see them at least maintain those. Have them on pole position, and one of the BMW second, so the BMW is going to be in first by the first corner. That'd be perfect scenario for me. Yeah.
It's I'm struggling to pick a winner, or who what I think is going to happen. I think it's easy to think Napa is going to have some degree of success. They've got to, I mean, equally it would be just as shocking if they didn't get a podium at all after what they've done already this season. So I think they are definitely going to be there. The battle between Napa and BMW is really heating up.
Ingram will be there or thereabouts. You can see Ingram probably having 3 podiums, but not really. But the wins are going to be coming from, like you say, those Napa Fords.
And I was going to say, in amongst that battle, you got Tom Ingram sat almost blissfully unaware in his fantastic way that he does. He's just doing what he does, and he just it's all just happening, and he just happens to still be keeping second place.
He's due a blip though, isn't he? That you think he's had a lot of when you look at. It's strange, isn't it, when you look at it, because his teammates, Halstead, Pearson and Chilton, have all had quite a fair bit of reliability problems this season. And Tom hasn't had any. Now either that's pure luck, or there's something in the way they drive the car or something like that, or the way they set them up. I'm not sure.
But say there's got to be a little bit more going into his setup, because, I mean, just...
It must be, because it's not a bulletproof car, because we've seen that from his 3 teammates.
Exactly.
I mean, Halstead's actually is on minus because of the engine changes that he's had, hasn't he? So, it's clearly not a bulletproof car. So he's doing a fantastic job, I think, Tom Ingram.
He really is. And he's so humble about it. It's just like, you wouldn't think he's out there. He is driving his socks off every time, but talking to him before and after, you wouldn't know it, really. So I would love to see that kind of happening. Just let the heavyweights go at it. One of them's going to make a mistake, i.e. Jake Hill in 2 races last time out, Ash Sutton as well. If he can just keep clear of that drama, he could find himself in the later meetings being he's a threat already to Ash Sutton, but he could be the one who literally, if Ash Sutton just keeps having these little accidents, Ingram could take the title just purely because he's managed to avoid it.
I just think that if Ingram does does do an Ash Sutton at some point, I think the consequences though will seem more severe for Ingram than they do for Ash, because he's not getting the wins as easily as what Ash is. So
that's true.
But no, there's a lot to play for. But I mean, trying to pick a winner for the weekend. You can have your ideas, but then you throw in the conundrum that it's likely to rain, it's not even guaranteed rain. It could be off and on, so you could end up with a Donington Park situation where you've got it could. Tom Chilton won, but it was. I mean, did Pearson finish 3rd that day?
Was that the one?
Was it? And he got disqualified.
I think he won it. I have a feeling Pearson won it, and didn't Chilton inherit it from him? I can't remember how it happened.
Oh, right. No,
Pearson definitely had.
I remember Chilton getting interviewed though on the after the race.
Maybe you're right. Maybe
he got a time unless he got a time penalty, then maybe, or something.
I think no, that's right. It wouldn't have been a win. Yeah, it probably was a 3rd. Then he had taken off him.
Yeah, but that was the race where we had Nick Hamilton was right up there, and I might watch that back at some point actually, because there was a few drivers up there. I don't know whether Andrew Watson or Mikey Doble were up there, and
it was
it'd be good if we could get races like that, and then it's absolutely anybody's, isn't it?
I would love to see Power Max have a stronger weekend. I think they had last time. I mean, they're there again. They are consistently up around sort of the top 10 and that, but they do have retirements sort of most weekends, so it would be good to see. And they got ideal cars.
Well, I think they've been quite consistent this year, haven't they? I mean, with Aaron Taylor Smith's done a good job, and then in the Jack Sears Trophy, Doble and Watson are 1st and 2nd in that one.
Yeah, in terms of the actual I would
They've
like
done
to
well
see
for rookies.
They really have, and I would love to see just some gravitate higher up the
Yeah.
pecking order, overall.
But I think
in
they
one of
could
these
be
races.
maybe one of those teams that's about to sort of maybe have a bit of a breakthrough at some point.
Maybe.
They've been in it for a couple of years now, haven't they? And you think back, like we were talking about Motorbase and how they started, BTC Racing / One Motorsport, how they progressed, and
Yeah.
I don't know what is the Power Max Racing's actual name other than the sponsor? Because I think Power Max is just a sponsor's name, isn't it? I don't know what the name of the actual team is, but they could be a team that's likely that could push on because they seem to have a really good driver set up at the moment. It might just be that car's not the greatest. I think they're really in the neck of it, really.
They've had some very decent people drive for them as well. It's obviously
Jason Plater was there, wasn't he, for a while?
Yeah. And they
trying to think who his partner was that season.
I can't remember. That was one of the ones that I didn't actually. I don't think I saw.
It was nearly Jason Plater and Matt Jackson, wasn't it, in the COVID season? And then they both they withdrew, which was a shame because obviously we've not seen Matt Jackson back since then. So
he's missing. The more I watch these old ones, I think the more I miss Matt Jackson from that.
Yeah, he was a massive loss to it. Yeah. He was so spectacular to watch, and they reckon apparently he was going to get the Honda Dynamics drive, wasn't he, in 2018?
Okay.
And he couldn't get the funding at the last minute, and Dan Camish got it instead. And I mean, as brilliant a driver as Dan Camish has been, but at that point, you wondered what Matt Jackson could have done in that car.
Yeah, quite. I mean, any car really.
He'd have done well. If he'd done any better than Camish, though, he'd have been champion, wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Dan couldn't really have done much more, could he? That season when he lost out so unluckily to Turkington.
I keep forgetting that. When I look at Dan, I suppose because I had a couple of years off and came back into it at the beginning of last year, I'd kind of forgotten. Dan to me was almost like a newbie. I'd forgotten about his success back then. It's like he's one who was definitely due his shot.
Yeah.
At it again, and being in the same team as Ash Sutton could rub off on him. Could be a hindrance to some degree because he can't really race him probably as much as he'd like to. But
I don't know. I can see Dan Camish being allowed to race with Ash and not having the same team of orders that maybe Dan Rowbottom's got. But I think it's probably a benefit to Camish because I think the spotlight is all on Ash Sutton. And in a way, then Camish can just sort of take a step back and like we saw race 3 at Croft and Alton Park when he has his problems. Camish is there to pick up the pieces, and he's as fast as anybody out there, and he's won countless championships before in Porsches, and he's a naturally quick driver. He should be a touring car champion now as well. But for rotten luck. So I've listened to a few shows lately, and people saying one was writing him off completely, and I think that's a really risky thing to do because he's properly in the fight, Camish.
He really is. Before we finish off on some sort of notable Knockhill memories that we can bring to the table. Honourable mention to Team Hard. Officially, what the revolving door. No disrespect to them or whatever, but they've got one driver left from what they started with at the beginning of the season.
I think you're going to be getting a call up for Donington.
There we go. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind. But yeah, it's such a shame. You can laugh all you like. There's obviously reasons for why what's happened, but Rob Huff coming in, brilliant,
absolutely fun. I forgot that he raced at Silverstone a few years ago.
I don't think
as a one-off. I totally must have. I mean, that's I totally forgot that. But I mean, he's one of the drivers that I'm really gutted that we lost him when we did because he was so good and that one season he had with that Seat and I thought, well, we haven't really seen him again since then. But is it just Knockhill that he's in for, or is he in for the rest of the season?
I don't know. Nobody. The sneaky thing about this is leaving us all up to assumptions because they never officially announced who he was in place of.
No, they didn't.
We're all assuming it's Nick Hamilton, because obviously he had issues running right at the last minute at Croft, and nobody's denied that. So that seemed like quite a cert, but they've very carefully said he's racing for Knockhill, but
But the
no
thing
reference or
is,
anything.
everybody's speculating with Hamilton that it's budget. Is that being made official anywhere, or
I've seen
because
nothing official, but that is
no,
what I've
because
seen.
at Croft, everyone's saying, "Oh, he wasn't racing at Croft because of budget," but his car was
Was
prepared and
there.
ready to go for
So-
free practice. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you've seen the photo where
Yeah.
it's alongside it's alongside Jack Butel's, and then you've got
Yeah.
Patterson behind. So that was prepared and ready to go out at free practice. So surely if it was a budget issue,
It
they
wouldn't
would
have
never
gone
have
there, would
even
it?
gone there, would they? They wouldn't
No.
have took the covers off it for the rest of the weekend. Now after
Yeah.
practice, they had the cover over it, but.
Yeah.
That was clearly a last minute thing. I wasn't sure whether there was maybe a bit of illness or something like
There's
that.
nothing on his page. He's posted
Exactly.
anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So,
I wouldn't guarantee that it was budgetary because that
no.
car was ready to go on Saturday morning.
So we'll have to see. After we take it one meeting at a time, I suppose. But
I hope it's for the rest of the season. As I'd love to see. We're off to Donington, so I'd love to see Rob Huff
cool.
back in action and meet him. And I mean, he's become a touring car legend, hasn't he? Since he's left here.
I mean, that kind of pedigree, I feel, is almost something that Team Hard need. They again another one of those teams that probably with their caliber at times, deserve to be. I like that car, and I think it deserves more.
Well, I like Team Hard, to be honest, mate.
Yeah.
They're a team that's really grew on me over the years, and I think they get a lot of criticism. I can understand some of the criticism, but at the same time, I think a lot of it's unfair. And Tony Gillan was somebody that I wanted to try and chat to at Croft. I tried several times. I mean, I'm quite a nervous bloke at speaking to drivers and whatnot anyway, but I really wanted to speak to Tony Gillan, and I had a few things I wanted to ask him, and every time I saw him he was busy talking to somebody, so I decided against it. But I mean, he'd be an interesting person if we could ever get on here, because there's from racing himself and then running obviously these teams. I mean, he'd be an interesting bloke to talk to.
He really would. And I forgot until I went back and watched the 2012 season again that he was racing there.
And he was a good driver as well. He was a really good driver, and he raced for Team Hard when they weren't the team that they are. I mean, I know everyone criticises them now, but back then I think they were in Super 2000 cars, weren't they, mixed with the NGTC? And he was a driver that I would have loved to have seen him in better machinery. And I'm sometimes I've been surprised. I don't know how old he is, but he can't be that old. And I've wondered sometimes why has he ever been tempted to get back behind the wheel? And
the way they're going,
he nearly won a race, didn't he, at Thruxton? Was it Thruxton he nearly won? He was leading for a long time. I'm sure it was Thruxton.
Right towards the end, he went off.
In the wet, and he was. And I think even then he was on the podium, and then he went off at the chicane.
That's
and
right.
He was gutted about it.
Yeah,
but he was a brilliant. But he was ahead for quite a while. It was, and in a really old car, or not old, sorry, but with a Super 2000 car.
Yeah.
So
that was a Civic.
He did a really good job.
Civic.
It was, sorry.
It was a Civic. I think he had a Honda.
It was, yeah. It was like a pink and green, and lime green Civic, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
But he did well in Porsches as well, and he was just a really good driver. And surprised he doesn't race himself, innit? I guess he prefers running a team. I don't know. That's one of the things I wanted to ask him.
I was going to say, the way they're going at the moment, who knows? He might well be in there before the end of the season. So. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Let's kind of off the top of our heads then. Really, anything stand out? For Knockhill. Let's bring it back to topic. Any particular memories that have stuck with you in the past from there, mate?
Yep. Obviously, probably what's the most famous incident at Knockhill for touring cars? It's got to be Gabby Tarquini rolling and absolutely destroying his Alfa Romeo and that
it wasn't until you mentioned that when we were discussing this that I thought, yeah, of course. This is where I don't make associations between incidents and tracks, but yeah, I mean, it's on pretty much every highlight reel you see at BTCC.
And his reaction is almost just as legendary. The way he just slumps to the against the barrier, and it's like a dead retro image, and he's got the old little like almost wooden front barriers and the old open face helmet. It's like,
that's right.
It's I mean, what a violent crash that was. And then the damage that it did was odd, really, wasn't it? The way all the doors came flying
know,
off, and
just
you've
shows,
seen loads of rollovers in the past, but I've never
yeah,
seen doors and boots flying off. And
probably added to fuel to the fire on people that really kind of they weren't enamored with the way that Alfa Romeo were running away with it that season. Probably
yeah,
had little sympathy for that. Obviously, physically, thankfully, it wasn't a bad crash to him. He came out of it unscathed, but that car just looked like it just given up and fallen apart.
yeah. Well, I've heard interviews with him, and he said he can't understand how it happened because he said he was going at such a slow speed into the corner as well, and yet it seemed to roll faster than he was actually driving
Yeah,
into the corner. But
that's definitely up
yeah,
there. So yeah,
that,
not that we've
that was an
seen things like
iconic.
that, but yeah, definitely as far as iconic goes, there you go. That's again,
Then the following year, James Thompson did something similar, didn't he? And ended his first season as at Vauxhall, and it
yeah.
took him a while. Yeah, he had an injury. It took him a while to get over, to be honest.
Again, remember the incident? Yeah, didn't realize that was
Yeah,
there. So, oh yeah, okay. So, I mean, particularly back then, anyway, ones that can, you've got to drive carefully around it, which sounds odd when you're talking about motor racing, but
it's quite narrow
they,
track as well, isn't it? It
yeah, it
looks
is.
quite.
That's it. So, opportunities, passing opportunities, all of a sudden become very, very risky.
Yeah,
We I don't think we've seen any incidents quite like those in recent years, but who knows? It like with the Tarquini one can happen out of nothing. So
yeah,
not that we wish for those kind of things, but it's good to have a track that kind of gives at least the flavour that something could happen at the
yeah. I
at the
mean,
corner.
and there's been some brilliant races as well. I mean, anybody that did want to go and relive a few races or just get them in the mood for it. I mean, the 2004 meeting, the second and third races, I think are as good as any touring car race. I mean, the best touring car race for me ever was the Nigel Mansell race from 1998.
Right,
But
yeah.
that 2004 Knockhill comes close for me, and it was in dry conditions, and there was so much action and overtaking, and
Yeah.
Anthony Reid was absolutely flying in that black MG, and that was a really good meeting. That was, like I say, that's classic touring cars for me. That meeting.
That's a year I've still got to go back and relive. So so I'll definitely look out for that one.
Yeah, it's a good year that one.
Was it? Yeah.
Well, Thompson won it by the fastest lap in the end.
This is it. This is James Thompson. Completely. He was one. I think again when I first got back into it, I knew his name was out there. I don't know if he still popped up here and there around about that time.
Yeah. Well, was it 2012? You started
2012,
watching it.
yeah.
I think he did a one-off race at the end of the season for Motorbase.
Okay.
It was either that season or maybe the season before. I can't remember. And he didn't do anything. To be fair,
didn't realise he was a double champion at all.
Yeah.
Watching these older ones,
Yeah, but no, he was a legend. And again, he was always there was a nice guy as well. Pretty down to earth. And hasn't he retired now?
I think probably, yeah.
Or does he race? Yeah, sure. Again, an interview with John Cleland said he lives in Ibiza now.
Oh, really?
With his wife, yeah, and his girlfriend. So
why not?
it's not bad, is it? If you can, I know he lived in Monaco for a while, so yeah, it's certainly moves forward. Certainly good to him, yeah.
Yeah, been good to him, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think my only thing to add to this, memorable. Again, it wasn't a year that I've lived, that I remember. But one thing along my travels that I found out that happened 2008, Seat, Jason Plato was driving for him at the time. They took, I believe they took wins in all three races. I think
Diesel, wasn't it? Yeah.
So he got the first two, and then was it
Darren
Turner? Darren Turner, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, talking about NAPA and their domination at the moment, and similar kind of glimpses of it. I don't know if Seat were all over it like Napa are now, but
They
good
should have been
for them.
Yeah, that was the year they absolutely should have been. I mean, that diesel was ridiculous down the straight, but the car just has so many reliability problems. And I mean, a lot of the time, I think that was a track. I mean, if you've got the results there, I'm pretty sure it was the two Seats, first and second, and then it was like Giovanardi and Tom Cole right behind them in the Vauxhalls. They just couldn't. The speed on the Seats going up that hill was just it was just ridiculous. They're the same at a lot of the tracks where they had straights, like Snetterton and stuff. But yeah, dude, that was a year that I think Jason Player might look back and think that was one that got away.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally forgot that he used to drive a Seat. I think that was the surprising thing as well when I look back on that.
He was a proper Seat man, yeah, because he was working on that project for about a year before he came back into it, and he was part of the whole like development process. And I think he almost got to choose his own teammate. He was involved with like the some of the Seat like support stuff that was going on behind the scenes. He was. Yeah, I think for a good sort of 5 years, 4 or 5 years, he was a Seat man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those mates I forgot that was in there, let alone having success.
And he's won more races than anybody at Knockhill, Jason Plater.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go.
It took a while to get his first win, but then he's done really. He ended up pretty sure he's had more wins there than anybody.
Well, it's definitely a record there for someone to try and.
Yeah, I don't know who the next man is. Whether it's somebody whether he's gettable, but I'm not sure of the exact figures. But I know I heard something recently, and Jason Plater would won more races at Knockhill. So
I might have a look. But there you go. Hopefully, we've set the scene for everyone anyway. Everyone that I can see who's a BTCC fan that I know is very, very excited as ever. For another meet, and it's definitely, at least the title race is still wide open. There's a lot of excitement yet to come, and I look forward to kind of dissecting it when we come together again, and see where we are, because the second half of the season I'm excited anyway, but the second half is always more because it's winding down to a point, and every turn, every point, every win means more to them. So good to see who comes out on top.
Yeah.
Lee, it's been a pleasure as ever.
Yeah, superb.
I'll see you on the other side, mate.
All right then, Chris.
Enjoy, everyone. We'll
take care.
Tonight. Cheers.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook to keep updated about all future shows.